Please allow me to introduce to you my colleague and co-presenter for today's Crowdcast, a familiar face in the tourism sector of South Africa. In fact, he is also a much in-demand global e-marketing guru within the sector. Please help me in welcoming the former global e-marketing manager at South African Tourism and now digital maverick and founder of #HackTourism, William Price. Morning, William.
Good morning, John.
How are you this morning?
I'm very good, thanks. Very happy to be here in a not so lockdown studio. So
it is amazing. Yeah, isn't our studio awesome?
Love it. It's really cool.
It's incredible. Well, William, I'm sure you're going to tell us a little bit more about the guests that are joining us and the presenters that are joining us this morning. So I'm going to leave you now and leave our audience in your very, very capable hands and allow you to get on with the show. Enjoy it, everybody, and please remember, we're going to be having episode 3 coming up soon, and there'll also possibly be a Q&A at the end of the session, depending on how we go from a time point of view. But we had to spend the morning with you. Enjoy it. Over to you, William.
Thank you so much. So it's been quite an exciting time for us to try and upgrade our game when it comes to the webinar series, and I think you'll agree that the new environment is something that we're quite excited about and been struggling not to talk about. To my left, a very esteemed gentleman who's spent a lot of time in business, particularly from a coaching perspective. And we really wanted to hear from him today because I think from a business perspective and from a tourism perspective, what we're going through in these uncertain times requires some real expert knowledge and insight. And we're very happy to have you here this morning, Brent. So thank you for agreeing to participate.
Thank you.
You've got a few slides that you're going to be sharing with us today.
Indeed.
I think it's definitely interesting time for business. Business is changing, and we can't continue to do things the way we always have done them in the past. And I think for today, I'm really interested to hear what advice and insights you have to share with our audience. So I really want you to just feel comfortable and welcome. Take it easy.
I'll take it easy.
You're here because we really appreciate your perspective. I've had the opportunity to work with Brent on a few projects and also seen his work in action live, and it's been really rewarding. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thanks, William.
No pressure.
No pressure.
You may take the stage. Thank you so much.
So I think the starting point is that I'm not in tourism or hospitality. I think that I'm a tourist of business. I like to float in and out of businesses and understand what works for them, what are their trends, what are their impacts and risks around each different kinds of businesses, from technology businesses right through to Apple farmers. So a global perspective of different kinds of businesses, different industries, and different sectors. So what I want to talk to you today about is my current experience. Can we load the slides? So this is me a couple of weeks ago. I'm probably one of the last sort of global tourists in the current circumstances. I was fortunate enough to be in Europe a couple of days before lockdown started in Europe, and it was my first insight into what was going to be this pandemic. The day before we had to leave, the people who owned the little pension that we were staying at, who are third-generation husband and wife owners of this property, told us that they had to shut down the property and kick us out the following day. And I was lucky enough to see some of the hard conversations that they were having with their staff, telling them that they had no job from tomorrow and didn't know when they were going to come back. These were the first insights of what was going to be this global pandemic. So what I would like to do today is just talk to you a little bit about the experience I've seen across multiple businesses and how you can review your business and change your mindset going forward. I'm going to steal something I saw on another webinar by a guy called Richard Holland. I'm probably going to hash this a little bit, but it's a great little insight in terms of a thinking piece. What he said was, during the beginning of this COVID pandemic, was we've all got into the car and loaded Google Maps to take us to our destination. We know where we're leaving from, and we know where we're going to, the destination. Along the route, we see something ahead that looks like a roadblock. So what do? We veer left. And as we veer left, that lovely lady on Google Maps is going, make a U-turn, make a U-turn, make a U-turn. And at some point, we realize that we can no longer make a U-turn. And Google then readjusts our route and decides to take us a different way to the same destination. Now, for a long time, and some of us are still in this mindset, that make a U-turn to go back to what was, the way we were going, is no longer an option for us. We have to decide to pick a new path, to get to the same destination, all right? Same destination, different route. It was Charles Darwin that said that survival is determined by the ability to adapt to your circumstances, Darwinism. And the only difference between Darwinism and COVID is the sudden change in the environment. Darwinism talks about a long, slow evolution, where COVID has been a sudden change to everything we know and understand. So we've all been exposed to IQ and EQ at some point of our lives. The new Q you've got to worry about is CQ, which is your change quotient. This is your ability to change and adapt to your environment, okay? So COVID is an accelerant. It has brought the future forward in most of our industries. What was bound to happen has happened just a hell of a lot quicker. So in my opinion, IQ and EQ were the most important things to keep your business, alive and viable. And now the new thing, which is CQ, which is your change quotient, is actually more important than your IQ and EQ combined. So your CQ is you doing new things and new ways of doing your business, right? It's adopting new technologies, understanding the new competitions, the new roles, and the new services and products that you require. If we look back at like September 11, 9/11, it put a lot of businesses out of business. Those were the businesses that could not adapt to the new environment. The internet in itself has been a very slow pandemic. The internet has put businesses out of businesses that could not adapt. So you have all been tadpoles swimming in a pond of tourism and hospitality. And what I'm asking you to now think about doing is change yourself from being that tadpole to being a transformed into a frog. You are the same animal in the same pond, the same DNA, but just a new shape and a new form. What I'm not asking you to do is to become a faster tadpole or a thinner tadpole or a skinnier tadpole. I want you to transform completely into a frog. Okay, same animal, same DNA, new shape, new form. This is going to take a serious long-term commitment on your behalf in order to make this change. I want to go back to my old business. Now, I ran a business for 17 years, and for 15 years of that business, my business was absolutely bulletproof. It made money year after year, no matter what happened in the environment. At its peak, we had about 80 million rands in revenue. We had about 300 staff, a sales team of 30 to 40 people. We had 19 properties around the country. And for 15 years, this business month on month was profitable. Then what happened was in early 2008, 2009, I had my COVID. And my COVID was something that I should have seen because I should have done the risk analysis on my business. What happened was there were fires in Russia, which had an economic impact on the moratorium of export of edible oils. So my oil price went up. We had a drought, so we couldn't procure and process fruit at the same price. We had long-term commitments to partners. We had very high overheads in terms of space and people. We had a 5-month strike. This image is part of the cases that we landed up firing lots of staff through the CCMA because of doing an illegal strike. So I had a whole bunch of the perfect storms of risk that took out my business. That was my COVID, okay? I never saw it coming, but it affected me. So what actually happened was I went from my own personal net asset value of about 20 million rand, I went down about 12 million rand, which was the best money I ever spent. And during that period, I gained 4,000 Twitter followers because that's what I spent my time doing. I hated my business. I just wanted to do something else, and I watched my business tank. And I gave zero fucks, excuse the F-bomb. So the point being is that every single business at some point in their history is going to have a high risk and impact. And whether it's COVID or whether it's something else, you have to make sure that you are analyzing the risks around your business all the time. I want to talk to social media and the adoption of tech as a rule. And I want to use one simple example, it's one of many, as to why you should be adopting technology in order to market yourself better. So globally, obviously the biggest business in the world is Amazon. And what Amazon is now doing is disrupting the traditional advertising space in a very unique way. This is the example. Amazon have a product called Prime Second Box. What they are doing is when you are ordering online via type or via, dear Alexa, I'd like to order something via voice, what Amazon is doing is it's giving you a second option in terms of the product. So the example is, dear Alexa, please give me Sunlight, green liquid for my house to wash my dishes. Alexa will respond saying, we have sunlight for you at price, let's call it 20 Rand. We also have an Amazon house brand at 15 Rand. Which would you like? Now, if you decide that you would like the house brand, you get the house brand delivered to you. If you decide you still want the brand, Sunlight, that you've been accustomed to, and you want to use the brand that you love and trust for so many years, what they'll do is they'll send you the Sunlight, but they're also going to send you the 15 Rand cheaper alternative. And they're also going to send a second box. And the second box is there for you to put the products you don't want back in, and they will collect that for you. Now, the reality is we're incredibly lazy as humans. And what this means is that we are most likely not going to return the second product. We're going to keep the house brand. And once we've tested that house brand, we found that it actually works, and it is actually quite a lot cheaper than the bigger brand, we're never going back to the brands. So what Amazon is doing is they're killing off all the brands we, for multi-generations, have learned to love. Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Kraft, Nestle. It's the Sunlights, it's the toilet papers, it's the white soaps, it's the dog foods. The stuff that we don't like queuing for is the stuff they're going to wipe out those brands. They're putting their brands in your home. Incredibly powerful. Now, why is this important to you? The reason I'm telling you this is that if they're killing off the Procters and Gambles of the world and those brands, P&G is the biggest advertiser in the world. They are the guys that have managed to keep the TV, the print, the radio industry alive. Those places are dying because of examples like this, which means the place that you used to advertise to your clients is no longer relative. Okay, it's no longer sustainable, and your clients will no longer be on those platforms. So this is one example why digital is being so transformative in terms of where you need to be seen and advertising. Now, during the entire COVID pandemic, what has been fascinating to me is that the entire economy globally and all the stock markets have fundamentally been wiped out, except for the large tech businesses. Now, this is a stat from Amazon, and during the COVID period, Amazon have been up 6%, and since beginning of the year have grown 33% in the stock market. Now, the question is, why is everyone else taking pain except for the tech businesses? The reason being is they own what I call the rails. They own the reason and the way in which all stuff is being delivered. They own the supply chain. So what you need to be aware of is that Amazon is also a massive media player. They're now having Amazon Prime that's competing with the likes of Netflix. And they're stealing lots of advertising money for people to advertise on their platform. So the reason I'm telling you this is that one of the big trends that I'm expecting to see is that the large businesses like Expedia, which own a massive chunk of the online travel and tourism infrastructure, they own things like hotels.com, Trivago, Travelocity. They are prime and ripe for some kind of takeover. Now, the likes of Amazon have to keep growing in value and adding value to their shareholders and their share price. And they cannot grow fast enough besides go big game hunting, which means buy into new revenue streams and new industries, okay? The likes of Amazon are moving into medicine, where the likes of Apple are moving into the likes of education. And I believe that the likes of Expedia are probably going to be taken over by a tech business like Amazon, making the environment even less competitive for you to succeed. One of the other predictions I have is that insurance, like medicine and like higher education, has been ready for, and I hate the word, disruption for a very long time, okay? It's primed for tech to take over. And what you're going to see is that there's no longer going to be middlemen, brokers, and travel agencies making money selling insurance. The person who's going to do the traveling should be able to have direct access to buy their own insurance. And I think that some of the suppliers, like the hotels and the restaurants and people that are being exposed to the tourism industry, will also have the availability to start selling insurance directly through tech platforms. Now, when you think of the horrific images of the Twin Towers falling, a lot of that provokes similar feelings of stress that COVID has brought on. Now, 9/11, the Zika virus, yellow fever, and that Icelandic volcano that no one can pronounce have all been massive movements of improvements in tourism in hindsight, right? The pandemic is not without precedence. This pandemic has happened before and it will happen again. But the good news is that every crisis does come to an end, right? This crisis is not new to everybody, but it may be new to you. What you need to be doing is asking yourselves, what are the new safety trends that will result from COVID, and how can you exploit this without selling masks? Okay, what is the sustainable models that will come out of the back of COVID that you can make money? One of the things that still blows my mind is the fact that our passport is made of paper. That in this incredibly virtual tech world, that we have a paper-based passport. So the tech upgrades from biometric testings to the way we are medically tested for travel is going to change. Paperless passports is incredibly antiquated, and that's going to change, right? So virtual tours and online communities are going to be the common things. I see the Serengeti are now offering a daily game drive. So all of these things are becoming quite obvious as the new trends in the interim, and potentially may become long-lasting in some forms of fact. So the question is, what do I do now? Like, what is the plan? What's the game plan? So when you go forward, there are 3 categories that you need to be thinking around how you change your behavior. The first one is, what can you absolutely change today? What is the impact that you can make in your environment and in your job? The second one is, what are the things that you cannot particularly make a change on, but potentially you can influence change of behavior? And the last one is, what can you change your behavior toward that you know you cannot make a change? So if you think of it in 3 concentric circles, the middle one is make a change. The second circle is, what can I influence around me? And the third one is change your behavior towards what you cannot actually make a change to. So the first step is stay out of the middle. Now, in South Africa, we have 3 very large retail supply chains. We have Woolworths, we have Pick n Pay, and we have Shoprite. Now, in that scenario, Shoprite own the bottom end. They are the cheapest. They have the most amount of stores. They supply the bottom end, the poorest of the poor, with the retail day-to-day stuff. They own that space. At the top end, we have Woolworths. This is an example of guys selling highly expensive, very convenient foods, and they have a very particular market for it. In the middle, somewhere lost in the middle, is Pick n Pay. They're neither the top nor the bottom, and they're being squeezed from both sides. Now, in tourism, something similar is going to happen. The top-end luxury brands, if you're thinking like Mr. and Mrs. Smith online, they are going to be, with all their bells and whistles, successful and will continue to thrive. The flip side is that once the government start unlocking international travel and allowing people to move across borders, there's going to be a massive price war at the bottom end of the market, okay? There's going to be tons and tons of people looking for bargains. Those bargain hunters are out there to spend their money. So what's important here is you need to cater for the very rich, top-end, super luxury brand, or the very bottom, high volume. And at the bottom, we often have the youth. Now, in terms of COVID, the youth are less impacted by COVID from a health perspective. They're also about to enter a buying power economy, so they're about to start earning money and hopefully traveling. And you could start building your engagement with the youth of today to ensure that you have a much longer runway of loyal people and consumers that could spend money with you. So stay out the middle. What you also need to do is get really close to technologies, right? Understand which technologies are game changers and are going to unlock real value in your business, and get close to those people, right? Become familiar with all the different kinds of media and the paid medias and the social medias, and use them and exploit them for your own benefit. You also need to build relationships with these tech platforms and other kinds of marketing platforms where possible, okay? You also need to think about what your online and video testimonials look like. These are more important than ever before. I also want you to think horizontally. I'm talking about collaborations and relationships, right? I want you to think around, if you're a hotel, do you partner with a dive center? If you're a coffee shop, do you partner with a motorbike dealer? What does it look like in your ecosystem, okay? How do you allow other people to enter your space and benefit from each other in a succinct way? Other great examples are platforms like WeRoam and Unsettled that are building tourism businesses for the gig economy, where you are able to be set up with offices, food, network, entertainment, and accommodation, and they're owning everything on a horizontal basis. So when I talk about the horizontal space, you need to make sure that you are partnering, collaborating with complementary services to yours. I also think you can start thinking vertically. So vertically means owning the supply chain and everything that's delivered within your business. So it's things like owning the media, owning your bookings to collections of people from the airports, all the entertainment, all the transport, all the insurance, your food, your cleaning, every single touch point in the experience of your clients' tourism or hospitality experience, can you own, or which parts of those can you actually own and control? And one of the most important things I want you to think about is that you are now a marketing business, regardless of what your service or product offering is, okay? So you have to act like a marketing business. You have to understand marketing intrinsically, and you have to embrace social media and experiment on all the platforms, which includes the likes of the new TikToks, understanding how to use WhatsApp effectively for marketing, and get onto all like the Slack channels that are out there, and use everything outside of the obvious channels as well. What's important about online is that you have to start creating content. There's the 1-9-90 rule, which says that 1% create content, 9% disseminate content, and 90% consume. The 90% is your consumer. It's the people that will spend money with you, right? You have to start creating all kinds of video, all kinds of interesting content, and there's a great acronym for it. It's called PIES, P-I-E-S. You need to make sure your content is practical, inspirational, educational, and sexy. But the most important thing is you have to be the 1%. You need to start creating tons of content for SEO, that's search engine optimization, and being able to be found online. Now, when we talk about content, there's a great saying that says, if content is king, distribution is the kingdom. And now we all think about content in the likes of like Netflix. But Netflix has a real problem, is that it doesn't own what I refer to as the rails, okay? In order for you to access Netflix, you have to watch it on Amazon Prime or Apple TV or a Samsung Smart TV or some kind of application that they don't own, like Google. So I want you to think about what are the rails in your environment that you can own or partner with. And ideally, you want to own them in terms of your owned assets, like your websites. So own as much online content as you can possibly do, and work out what are those rails that you can own in your industry, or build those rails. COVID is to tourism what Netflix was to the video store, just a hell of a lot quicker. So another way to get yourself recognized is to do something like start a movement, okay? And make it public and build ambassadors that are going to help you become seen and aware and trusted on the online space. And don't be afraid to fail. I heard something beautiful this week that someone said that if your Airbnb property fails in a forest, does anyone hear it? Does anyone care? And the answer is no. The other thing as well is that you have to own page one of Google. That means every single thing on Google needs to talk to you and your service. If I type your name in or I type your service in, I want to make sure that I'm seeing everything that you own. That talks about your website, any kind of online exposure or public relations exposure, your own social media exposure, and possibly some paid Google advertising, which is relatively cheap, and think of it as your online billboard. One of the great trends that's going to come out of COVID is local is lacquer. Where you're going to see, if you think about the way you're going to spend your money and you're going to travel, you're going to fly less, you're going to drive more, which means you've got to cater for the local market, okay? People are looking for local holidays and experiences with an international budget, which allows you for some margin to play with there, because people are used to spending a couple of grand on flights, all right? So you need to localize your values, localize your content, localize your marketing narrative, and make sure you're speaking to the local market, because this is where your money will come from in the short term. It may be quite some time until the Germans come back to Cape Town. You have the opportunity now more than ever to access the gig economy. These are freelancers that are online that are able to provide services at very, very affordable rates to you. I want you to think about, how do you find a global sales team that are on call on a commission basis? Okay, you need to be ruthless with cost cutting at the moment, and finding people that are freelancers and experts in the space will allow you to grow your business with an agile variable overhead. The other thing you've got to think about is, what are the problems that you're still trying to solve that are no longer a problem in your business? This is called legacy thinking. Okay, it's time to reestablish, what do your clients actually want again? What services do they really want from you, and what is your value proposition? Okay, what are you offering them? I have a great example where I currently have a client who is an accountant who still has the requirement to go to his clients' offices, because traditionally the software sat on a local server. Even though that is no longer relative, the performance or the trend of going to see the client still exists. So he's solving a problem that no longer is actually a problem in the business. So what are the problems? What is the legacy thinking in your business that you need to stop and change? Okay. So what actions and tactics are you still holding on to because they worked back then pre-COVID that is no longer a problem anymore? And take off that bias, remove that mask, take off the blinkers. Knock, knock, who's there? Opportunity. There is opportunity everywhere. Okay. I want you to think in terms of an onion. There are layers and layers and layers. So the first layer was we had the first impact of COVID and everybody went and sold masks. That was the first opportunity. But over time, more and more layers will become unlocked in this crisis. Now, I don't know if you saw that last week, Hertz, which owns Dollar and Thrifty globally, went into Chapter 11. They're insolvent. They've retrenched the first 10,000 staff, which is about a quarter of their staff. And that is horrific in its own, but it unlocks a huge amount of opportunity. So airlines taking pain is level 1. Avis and Hertz taking pain is level 2. But the knock-on effect of that is that these companies have thousands and thousands of cars. Those cars are sitting in parking lots near airports. So what are they going to do with those cars? What are they going to do with those airports, those properties? So there's opportunity in doing something with those cars or doing something with those properties. And that's where the knock-on effect is, where you need to be opening your eyes to what is the next wave, the next ripple, and how do I get ahead of that wave and make sure that I can find the opportunity there. Another great example in this kind of thinking is that the restaurant trade has taken huge pain, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be a ton of restaurants on auction selling off their equipment, their tables, their chairs, and all their coffee machines. The opportunity could be buy that stuff and ship it into Africa or ship it into other BRIC economies. So think beyond what you're comfortable with and look at the other opportunities and outside of your comfort zone. I don't know how many of you remember this. This is very pre-digital. This is something called an Etch A Sketch. There was a mechanical toy that was built in the 1950s by a Frenchman. It had two little knobs that moved the stylus, and that stylus moved aluminium powder around the screen, and you were able to draw lines, leaving a solid line, and be quite creative on that. For me as a kid, this thing was magic. But what the magic thing was that you could just turn upside down, shake it, and have a brand new screen, okay? The powder was removing what was there in the past, and you had the opportunity to now draw outside of the lines again, okay? So I want you to reimagine a world where it's shaken upside down and you have a blank canvas to start again, okay? You will never regret trying something new. You will only ever regret not trying anything at all, okay? I want you to now look at this as an opportunity to envision your lives as a world turned upside down with that powder redistributed, okay? COVID has opened opportunities for a better life. It's potentially a rebirth, a rejuvenation, a reincarnation, and a reinvention, okay? It's time to embrace the change. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so
I tend to have drifted a bit.
Yes, you have drifted a little over the stage there,
Good.
but thanks. So, Brent, I think you went through very quickly, and there was a lot of content that you covered.
Yes.
I'm very interested. Let's go a little back to the whole thing about you're a tadpole. The pool hasn't changed much, but you now need to do this transformation, right? So businesses literally need to say, how am I going to pivot? What's going to work for me now in this new normal, which, by the way, I hate that because it shouldn't be.
It's the new abnormal.
Exactly.
Right.
So let's just talk a little bit about some practical examples there. I think with your kind of exposure across a much broader business spectrum, what are the things that people are actually starting to go, well, what if I think differently, if I act differently, what does that then start to do for the problems that I'm going to be solving now? Because the problems that we need to solve are different, right?
Sure. So I think that a few things that you shouldn't be doing, right, is that I think everyone has jumped on the short-termism of selling PPE equipment, that sort of stuff. I don't think that's the answer. I also don't believe that every business needs to be an e-commerce business. I mean, obviously some businesses can't be, but I do think that I talk about the jumping on to understanding the new media landscape, and it's not that new anymore, but really adopting that I think is crucial. And I also sometimes think that you need to step away from, talk about your biases, right? So you've come into this with what worked in the past. And I do believe that examples are where you need to just imagine you were starting a new business today without the what worked in the past, and reapply your mind differently to practical solutions. Okay. And I think what you would do with that is that with any kind of new strategy, the first piece is the research piece, to actually really understand what is the problem that you are actually solving today. And I mean, there's always only two reasons that you ever start a business: is that something that no one else is doing, or you can do it better, faster, cheaper, quicker, whatever that looks like. So I think understanding where you play today and what the new requirements are is a research piece. And, you know, I can't speak to a particular sector of the industry because obviously it's very varied. But, you know, I think that the way that we are behaving has changed. So if you think about restaurants, everyone's jumped on the home delivery. And that will be fine for now. But as unlock gets, you know, softened and we go back to some kind of new abnormal, people will re-engage. But what does the new restaurant look like? And step away from what it always used to be. What does the new movie theater look like? Is drive-ins going to become a new thing again? Like, those are the new opportunities. So content, different format. Serving food in a different environment, a different way. And I'm not talking about wearing masks or putting up screens. I'm thinking about what kind of new experiences are new that are actually exciting, entertaining, and solving the COVID problem potentially. And over time, I think humans, we tend to forget how quickly we go back to our old habits. And even though 21 days change a habit, we've had more than 21 days of this. I think that a lot of what we used to do from our ego perspective in buying and showing off and being social, that's going to come back slowly and hopefully quicker than we think. So I do think it's around, don't try and just solve for COVID. Try and solve for a whole new experience. What does that look like?
Very cool. So a couple of comments. I noticed that you hate the word disruption.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
Well, I think that it's one of those jargon sort of, you know, hip words. Yeah. And disruption never happens from within the industry. Okay. So if you look at all the traditional disruptions, they always happen with someone completely left field that's come in and killed it, right? So like no one saw Netflix and the video store, which is the example we talk about. But I often think that what happens is that there were things that were going to happen over time invariably, like they were just bound to happen. So I do think that disruption is the wrong word. I'm looking for your business is being disrupted now, not because you wanted it to. So what does self-disruption look like? How do you look at yourself and go, right, I need to cannibalize my own business and take COVID off the table as though it never happened? How would I have done that differently now? Okay, and reapply that. So force yourself to change your business model, force yourself to think about your products and services differently, and don't use COVID as the blinder. Yes, you're feeling pain right now, but I want you to think about it as though there was no COVID and you had to make a different approach, different change. What would you do differently?
Oh, very cool. So a couple of things that I've noticed. I think the way that people are going to travel, because of what we saw happening at 9/11 and how that disrupted and changed global travel, you know, additional security measures, etc. A lot of that's going to make international travel and long haul or even short haul travel very, very difficult, very, very cumbersome, very, very uncomfortable for people to do. So I think there's going to be a big shift between, do people really want to travel far? You know, is it really the experience outside of business travel? Is it really the experience that's worth all of that effort? And remembering that we're going to do that kind of curve again, right? There's going to be a lot of discomfort at the beginning, and then as people get more and more comfortable and as flights increase, et cetera, things are going to become a little bit easier for people to do. But I really enjoyed what you were saying about local is lacquer. I think that's an important thing for us from a domestic tourism perspective to look at as well.
So I think that there's a few things for me. I think that like biometrics and the ease of which we, instead of queuing in airports, I think they're going to automate a big piece of that. I think the big disruption is not so much tourism, but I think it's business travel. I think what's happened now is businessmen have realized this sort of environment works. This is actually a more efficient meeting. We can do this without traveling. We don't need to get on a plane and spend stupid money going to see our clients or suppliers. We can do it remotely. So I think that's going to take a long time because businesses are all around efficiency. So when they realize this is actually more efficient and actually saves us money, we're never going to go back to wasting cash. As a business, it's inherently what we're against, wasting cash. So I think business travel is going to take a very long time. I do think that a much slower and probably never back to the numbers where it was before. Where I think tourism is what people want to do is they want to have a break from work and enjoy something and experience. That will bounce a bit quicker, hopefully. And I also think that we've forgotten around, like, you know, you go to India, you need a yellow fever injection. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. You get a shot, get on the plane, and you go. You rock up, you need a little certificate, say you've had it. This is going to be COVID in a year or two. Like, I think that we underestimate how quickly we're going to adapt and move on. And there could be another phase of COVID, there could be another outbreak or another version of it for sure. But I think that we adapt fairly quickly, and the economy, the tourism and hospitality have been incredibly, adaptive to crisis in the past. I do think that the airline industry is going to take pain. The likes that we're seeing, the likes of a Hertz, which is a global brand, collapse is catastrophic. But I do think what's going to happen is that off the back of that, Uber's going to survive. Okay, so what you'll find is that instead of catching or booking it, you're just going to catch a taxi via Uber. So the money will change. The people will still get employed because the requirement will still be there in future. Just the way in which we engage or think about it will change. And I say, I think business travel is going to be the longest to get back to some kind of normality.
Cool. Thank you so much. Last thing I want you just to comment on. I noticed that in following your feed, you'll be talking about survive. Survival is an interesting combination of survive and thrive. And initially, what I had a problem was that a lot of my clients were like, "How do we survive this? How do we survive this?" And initially, I was entertaining that conversation. I was like, "Okay, this is how you do cut costs. Keep selling, like survive." And actually, what's come out of this is that the guys that went, "Hang on a second, I don't want to survive. This is really an opportune time. I really can grow here. We can actually thrive." And it's a mindset. They decided that they're going to adapt a new way. Buying media was cheaper than ever before. Access to sales meetings, cheaper than before. Having webinars and getting CEOs on the webinar, which you could never do before, was now accessible. The breakdown of the, I can now see your kids in the background, and there's a real sense of we're in this together, help the sales process. So the guys that changed their mindset during this process, during this period, actually landed up doing more than surviving. They've actually been thriving. There's been a handful of clients that are they're in the same industry as everyone else is, but their mindset is different, and they're actually a thriving mindset. So I just took the two together and put it survival, is a stupid word, right? But the point being is that a lot of this has got to do with your mindsets. And I understand that certain industries and certain businesses are absolutely, destroyed by this, and there's very little you can do about it right now. But a lot of that, instead of sitting your ass and moping and being depressed, is changing the way you think about it and going out there and engaging and trying to figure out what that new model is and where the new money lies. And the money is moving sideways. There's no question about it. The economy may be shrinking, but there's tons of money that's floating in different directions. Get ahead of that wave, figure out what that trend is in your business and where you can make money there. And you can make money for sure. That's fantastic. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I think if you need to reach out to Brent, otherwise known as Spilly, that's Spilly with 3 L's, we're going to make sure that all his contact details are available to you. And really thank you for the time.
Thanks, William.
Really appreciate your insight, and very happy that you haven't left us hanging. I think that's really, really awesome. So thank you for that.
Pleasure.